Info Plus for genuine information.
कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लस हेरिरहनुभएका सम्पूर्ण दर्शकवृन्दलाई स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छौँ। हामी छौँ अन्तर्वार्ता लिँदै अस्ट्रेलियन राजदूतसँग and we have a very special guest with us today, Your Excellency Felicity Volk. Welcome to our program Info Plus.
Thank you so much, Sadiksha, and also welcome to you to the Australian Embassy compound. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for opening your doors for this beautiful interview set up for us today. It is lovely chatting with you. Your Excellency, one of the first things I want to start up with is by just mentioning what a commendable work the Australian government did with the prompt response to the COVID-19, the pandemic, with the borders being shut down. And taking care of all the citizens who were there and all the international students and citizens who were there as well. But sadly, because of that, a lot of international students who wished to come to Australia were affected. And also, international or foreign studies contributes a large percentage of the Australian GDP. And I really wanted to know during this particular time, how were the universities and colleges in Australia affected?
Yeah, listen, thank you for recognising the work that the Australian government did very early on to provide a very safe environment for everybody who was inside Australia, including our international students. Right. Obviously, the pandemic, as it has everywhere around the world, very badly affected many people in our country, not just Australian citizens, but people who were inside the country, international students who were continuing their studies. So a difficult time for everybody, and I do offer my deep commiserations to people who've been affected. So very tough for Nepali students who were both in the country and those who were trapped outside. A frustrating time for people and a worrying time for people. But the government worked very hard to provide supports, and so our federal government, our state governments and our universities all worked hard to put new measures in place to support the international student population. In addition, the government provided supports to the education providers, and that also helped to get people through what was a remarkably difficult period.
And now that the borders have opened, Your Excellency, how is the post-pandemic situation like in Australia?
Well, I guess I would be careful about saying post-pandemic. I think that we're all still navigating some difficult times. The infection rates are definitely way down in Australia. Our vaccination rates are very high. We're looking at vaccination rates of around about 95% fully vaccinated in most parts of the country, which means that now that we are welcoming students back into the country, because our borders did open to international students on the 15th of December 2021 and to all people in February this year, we're now able to offer a really safe environment. And our health systems have been proved second to none, so that as we welcome people back, we're able to say that we can offer a really safe environment. Things are starting to move forward. We are learning to live with the pandemic in Australia as we are in Nepal and in other countries around the world. And I'm hoping that now we're navigating through to a much easier time for everybody.
Yes, I definitely hope that there will be a time when we say that we've actually put the pandemic behind us, right?
Yeah.
And Your Excellency, like you mentioned, mid-December when the Australian borders opened, I'm sure many students and parents were ecstatic about the situation. And now that there is a big surge and a backlog also, all these students were just waiting for the borders to open, and now that it finally did mid-December, like you mentioned, in 2021, there's also a huge rush. At a time like this, how does Australia filter the students when it comes to quantity versus quality?
Of course, we're always after high quality students, and I would encourage any of your viewers who are considering applying to be students in Australia to keep in mind that we have very robust visa arrangements in place. We scrutinise applications very carefully. I do encourage all prospective students to work through reputable agents if they're working through agents, to make sure their documentation is accurate, that it's in order, that it's current. We do want to make sure that anyone who applies is presenting their best possible application, and an application that is complete with bona fides, so that we can welcome them into Australia. Because if there is any problem with the documentation, students will be filtered out and they won't be able to enter the country.
And also a lot of students, Your Excellency, now, Australia has always been the number one destination when it comes to Nepali students as well, because of two predominant reasons. Number one, definitely being quality education, fantastic quality education, and the number two being job opportunities, right? But post-pandemic, there's sort of this confusion that students have that, oh, when we now go to Australia, will we still get the opportunities that the students before us got? So what is the job opportunity scenario like for international students in Australia currently?
So the good news is that right at the moment, the job opportunities are even greater than they were pre-pandemic. Because we've had a 2-year period where we haven't had many, for example, backpackers coming to Australia who often get involved in the casual workforce in Australia. There is in fact a lot of opportunities in the casual work sector, such that right at this point in time, the government has changed its offerings of temporary work, casual work for students. Previously, students were allowed to work up to 20 hours a week. At the moment, they can work unlimited hours in Australia. This could change. It's a temporary measure while we don't have a lot of people in the casual workforce, but it does present new opportunities to Nepali students. What I would say is your first obligation is to yourself and to get a great quality education. Do not sacrifice your academic success for the sake of work. You're in Australia to really make the most of that education opportunity. Of course, the work experience, being out in the community, experiencing all aspects of life in Australia is also important as a broad education. But the first priority should be your academic studies.
Very rightly said, Your Excellency. I think a lot of students sometimes get sidetracked because of a lot of things, but they're there to get quality education and to get a really good high quality degree in the first place. Your Excellency, another thing I really wanted to ask you was, because of this surge and this backlog, a lot of students are finding it very, very difficult to get timely appointments for the panel of doctors and their biometrics. Many students are even worried because their classes, their semesters have already started in Australia while they're still stuck waiting for that appointment date. How are things being managed in this aspect?
Yeah, and I acknowledge it's a very difficult situation at the moment, and I do offer my sympathy to students who are caught in this situation where they're having difficulty organising biometrics and medical appointments. We're keenly aware of this situation. I talk to my colleagues in our Department of Home Affairs about this frequently, and there are new measures coming into place to deal with the backlog and the very high numbers of applications. I guess we were all caught by surprise at how quickly there would be a rebound in interest in travelling to Australia. On the one hand, it's really pleasing and we're so delighted to welcome students back in their usual numbers. On the other hand, this has meant that there's been a dramatic rush of people applying for visas, applying for their biometrics and doing their medicals. So I've been working with some of our medical service providers at the IOM to organise that they're putting on additional doctors so that they can deal with the medical backlog. And in the same way, at VFS, where the biometrics are captured, there's another kiosk being put in there. So we're taking practical measures to deal with the backlog, but I do ask for people's patience and forbearance. It's a difficult situation. We will catch up as quickly as we can with the level of interest in coming to Australia.
I think this is also a positive news for a lot of students who are wishing and hoping for the same. I think quick measures to tackle this backlog so that a lot of students who really want to get started on their Australian journey could do so in time as well. Your Excellency, we also do Journey to Australia, and we're soon doing the 5th season of Journey to Australia, where we visit Australia, Australian colleges, universities, talk to Nepali students who are studying there and their experience. So in this 5th season, is there anything in particular you'd want to see, or what are your thoughts about it?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say huge congratulations on Journey to Australia as a remarkable series that is providing such valuable information to students, to their families and to others about opportunities for study in Australia. It's been a fantastic series, and I know my predecessors have been pleased to be involved in the first 4 of the series. Great that Series 5 is about to commence. I think this is such a critical time to be providing this sort of information. The situation in Australia has changed over the past couple of years, as we all know. And what I think is important to focus on is the shift away from the difficulties that everybody has encountered over the past 2 years to the positives. What is the silver lining in the cloud of the pandemic? Well, the Australian government has provided around $1.5 billion over the past 2 years to student welfare to support international students in Australia. The government has provided around $90 million in support to education service providers to improve their offerings of services to students and to improve innovation and research. So students who are going to Australia in this, let's call it post-pandemic period, are actually going to even stronger, higher quality education providers. They're going into a situation where supports are even greater for them, where we've worked through such immense challenges and difficulties, but come through in very positive ways. And so now I think there are a lot of opportunities for Journey to Australia to highlight about the additional offerings and the additional opportunities for Nepali students interested in a high quality, world-class education in Australia. So I'm grateful to you for providing a way for students to hear more about what life is like on the ground in Australia. And I look forward to seeing this new series.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I think just this feedback and this sense of direction that you've given us, we definitely work on it and hope that Journey to Australia Season 5 would also be enlightening for a lot of students who wish to continue or look forward to their journey in Australia. Your Excellency, it's been about a year that you are here as an ambassador. So I wanted to know, how do you see Nepal as a diplomat?
Well, I love Nepal as a person, and I've thrived on my time here as a diplomat. There's a really warm, very respectful relationship between Australia and Nepal, that 62 years of diplomatic relations, and I've been privileged to come in at a time when the relationship is flourishing. And I've been really pleased to be able to build on the solid foundations of my predecessors. So during the very difficult time of the pandemic, last year we were able to provide an additional $7 million in COVID response funding, which was dedicated towards health security measures, supporting education for students who couldn't join their schools in person, as well as livelihoods development. But in addition to these ways that we have such a strong partnership and such a respectful partnership, there are great people-to-people links. And I've been delighted to be able to travel around the country. A few times when my travel had to be cancelled because of COVID, but I managed to get to Rara Lake in November of last year with the UK and US ambassadors to promote climate resilience activities and ecotourism. I've had the chance to visit the south, to visit the very sacred site of Lumbini, and to see some of the great conservation work that is going on there with the Saris Crane Sanctuary, as well as the incredible opportunities for religious tourism. I've taken part in a Shane Warne Memorial Cricket Tournament in Bairawa recently. I've managed to travel to places like Pokhara, up to Solakumbu, where we've supported health posts and education programs. So I feel like I've seen a bit of the country, and the thing that's always struck me is the great warmth of welcome, the beautiful hospitality of Nepalis wherever they are in the country. And I feel very privileged to be here.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for such kind and warm words towards Nepal and Nepali people. I also know that you're a celebrated writer, and I'd recently heard somewhere that you feel like Nepal would be a great inspiration for a book that you might possibly write in the future. So I wanted to know, how and when can we see your thoughts being penned down about Nepal in a book?
Now that will have to wait until I've finished my posting. I find at the moment my life is so busy. There is so much going on. I have very little time to even read, let alone to write. But I think any author would say that wherever they are, whatever they're doing, they're always picking up the seeds of some new story ideas. Certainly, there is such a richness of culture and life here in Nepal. It is replete with fantastic story ideas. I would guess that when I finish my posting, I will probably start putting pen to paper. I would hope that within a few years of my return to Australia, there may be a novel that comes out of my experience in Nepal.
We really, really look forward to that. And I personally hope I am going to get a copy of that book since I asked you this question here.
So my promise to you is this. If I write and publish a book on Nepal, I will come back here for a book launch, and maybe you can be present there as a person to be in conversation with about it.
Fantastic, Excellency. We have this on camera, so I'm really looking forward to it. And lastly, Your Excellency, Nepal has a very vibrant alumni community, of students, experts who've gone to Australia, gotten their degree, and have this immense experience. And I always see on the embassy's social media sites also these various activities that are always conducted around them. How do you think we can really tap into those skilled personnels who have this international experience in Australia to better the society here in Nepal?
Listen, I'm so glad that you've mentioned that. It is a critical stage in any student's learning journey. I would always hope that students from Nepal who go to Australia, who acquire world-class education and the range of professional and other experiences of living and working in Australia, will at some point come back to Nepal and use their new skills, use their expertise to contribute to Nepal's development. And they will be strongly supported in that through the Association of Nepal Australian Alumni. So the organisation ANA has been set up to draw together the alumni community, to provide networking opportunities, new professional development opportunities, and to encourage Nepalis who've returned here to contribute to the country's development. This is my also personal vision. I would love to see students come back here. I think Nepal's greatest asset is its youth, and well-educated youth who have the innovation, they've got the ideas, they've got the energy and the passion to contribute to this fantastic country's development. There is so much potential here. I would hate to see a brain drain. I think it is useful to have professional experiences outside of the country, but it's always good to come back and to bring back that heart for and commitment to developing their own community. So I do encourage students to come back to be solid, active alumni here.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your time and your wonderful words of wisdom.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Info Plus, for genuine information.